you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The last time that we had a debate on this issue, I took many interventions from the party opposite. There are fewer of them here today, but they wanted to know if I would support lifting the two-child cap. And I said at the time, as I will say again, that increasing household incomes of children in poverty is one of several things that we need to do to tackle the scourge of child poverty in places like Bishop Auckland, and that I trusted the government's heart is in the right place on this issue. And so I'm delighted with the proposals they've brought forward, and today I will enthusiastically vote for this bill. It's a bill that will lift 450,000 children out of poverty. 2,310 households in my constituency are currently affected by the two-child cap. As I say, it's only one measure. It needs to be combined with other measures, and I think we've heard often in this debate that that it's the single quickest way to lift children out of poverty. That's because we measure poverty by household income. But poverty is multidimensional, and it is important that we address the multifaceted aspects of poverty. And combined with other measures, it will make a real difference. Measures like the Renters' Rights Bill, the Employment Rights Bill, increases in the national minimum wage, falling interest rates that's cutting mortgages, the new rules on school uniforms, the 30 hours of free childcare, the free breakfast clubs in every school to reduce the early morning stress on working parents, the extension of free school meals to a further 4,500 children in Bishop Auckland, the extension of the Warm Homes discount to more households, an investment in youth hubs, family hubs and arts and culture. All of those things will help support children in poverty, and that's why I'm proud to be part of this Labour government at this time. At a roundtable in my constituency shortly after I was elected, we invited educators and charities and people who work with children to talk to us about their experience of child poverty. There were tears in the room as head teachers talked of having to bring food into school to feed hungry children, of a child whose uniform was wet because there was no glass in the window of their home where that uniform was left, of children living in cold and damp homes, children in Shildon who are excluded from extracurricular activities because they have to get the only free bus home because their parents can't afford the £1 bus fare to take a later bus home. So I came here today to speak on behalf of those children, to be their voice. Now, I want to address some of the arguments that we've heard against this. And I think too much of this debate, frankly, has focused on party politics rather than on children. Party opposite seems to be simultaneously arguing that we should have done this sooner and that we shouldn't be doing it at all. But as I've engaged with the government over the last 18 months and had many conversations, including in Number 10 and with ministers, I've been reassured throughout that the Prime Minister had a strong personal commitment to eradicating child poverty. And it hasn't surprised me at all to see this legislation brought forward. The opposition to what we're doing today is based on falsehoods. The first of those falsehoods is that this is about supporting children in workless households. As my honourable friend said a moment ago, firstly, the children are not to blame. You can never blame a child for being born in a poor home. But also, 59% of families affected by the two-child cap are families in work. And we also know that universal credit requires people to show evidence of actively seeking work. You can't simply sit on universal credit. It is not that easy. And we know that often this is a temporary measure. I think about my own family. 12 years ago, I was working as a gardener on just above the minimum wage, and my wife was working as a carer while I was completing my PhD. And we relied for a time on having our income topped up by tax credits, as it was called then. I almost crossed that out of my speech because I know that I'll get an onslaught of abuse just for saying so. Such is the rhetoric in our country right now, demonising people who ever draw on our social security system. My twin sister became a single parent, not of her choosing. She raised 3 children, 2 of whom had a disability. I remember her telling me about a friend when she moved into her council house, telling her how you can paint the floor and put duvets at the windows to keep it warmer. But she put herself through a degree in pharmacy at Durham University and now works in my constituency for a GP practice as a pharmacist. And my brother, who was the highest earner in our family, died at the age of 35, leaving behind 3 children. So people fall on hard times. And when they fall on hard times, a caring society should be there for each other. One of the other lies, though, that we're hearing in this debate is that this is funded by a tax on workers, as they seek to divide people, to tell people who are just about managing that their tax is paying for people that aren't working. That's so not true. We know what's funding this and many other things. A fairer tax system, abolishing the non-dom status, a mansion tax, the remote gaming duty that's going to generate an extra £1 billion. So this is also about fairness and about who pays. And finally, there's this sort of lie that keeping children in poverty is good or necessary for the economy. It isn't.
Yeah.
The welfare bill increased £88 billion under the Conservative government, despite the real value of welfare decreasing. They oversaw a real terms decrease in living standards. And where did it lead? A generation of children who are malnourished, who experience family breakdown, who are denied opportunities to become a generation of adults that are realising their full potential, an increase in sickness, in days lost to sick pay, an increase in mental health disorders, a 250% increase in looked after children, rising cost pressures on government as a result of those policies. And as I finish, I must turn my attention to some comments that were made by the member for Runcorn, who's no longer in her place. And I intend to write to her about this, because I was deeply offended by the suggestion that people who were born in this country, who were not born in this country, but work hard, are somehow less. My wife was not born in this country. She came here as a teenager. She worked in a meat factory. She worked as a carer, and more recently went through university and now works as a midwife in our NHS. And I am so proud of her. And the idea that somehow she should be less entitled because of her birth, I find frankly disgusting. And I think Reform need to rethink that. And so as I conclude, I will be voting with the government tonight, and I will also emphasise again that this is one of several things that we need to do to have that national mission to end once and for all the scourge of child poverty in our country.